We're out on our terrace garden, Beth Neville for Art and Life, Milton Access TV. And the topic for today is going to be why is a dragon and a zinnia, why do a dragon and a zinnia share something in common? I mean, my goodness, a zinnia is totally different from a dragon, isn't it? Well, we're going to examine that. At one point in our garden, we had a beautiful display of zinnias, and I enjoy them immensely. They're on sale now in August at local nurseries, and we have purchased a pot, especially for you, so you could see what a zinnia is like and how to draw it this week and how to paint a pot of zinnias next week. So I hope you enjoy trying to figure out why a dragon and a zinnia have something in common. So here I am, Beth Neville. My husband, Robert Neville, is behind the camera, and Tom Pilla, good faithful guy from Milton Access TV, does the editing. So the first thing I'm going to do, and it really bothers me to do this, but I don't think I can explain to you what's similar between a dragon and a zinnia without cutting one. So I'm going to cut this red zinnia, and we're going to try to figure out why these two have something in common. And it has to do with a question of pattern. Pattern is very important, and many parts of our universe exhibit similar patterns, very surprisingly. Spirals are a standard part of many things that are in life. And so is the repetitive pattern for the scales and for the zinnias. So we're going to take a break. I'm going to get my supplies, and we'll start analyzing both the dragon and the zinnia. As my faithful viewers know, those who watch me every week in this program, and I hope there are many of you, I've begun using markers to show you patterns and so on, because the pencil really doesn't show up very well. Now, a marker is a rather crude point. It's blunt, and even though you can buy thin markers like this, the ones that show up better in this video are the big fat ones. I don't draw on markers when I do my watercolors, my oils, my acrylics, or whatever, but this is what we're going to use today. So if those of you who've watched before, remember I did analyze a dragon, how to draw a dragon. That was in the spring when we were really in the middle of the virus. So we're going to go back over it today. If you want to know how to draw a dragon, please go back and look at that previous video. If you can draw an M and continue to draw an M, you basically are drawing the most important aspect of a series of scales that form a pattern. You can also think of it as a series of U's. So it's either a U or an M. Doesn't make any difference which way you approach it. But the trick for getting these scales on here, or this is another lovely example. This is an ivory, very heavy ivory. And of course, we don't approve of carving ivory anymore. We really want elephants to be saved and not harvested for their tusks. However, this one was purchased by us in China many decades ago, and it's hard to see, but the dragon scales are here. Here's the head of the dragon, and here he is curving back in the clouds, and then there's another one over here. Here's his tail, it comes around, and he has here's his head right here. There's his head, actually, and his fangs and smoke coming out of him and so on. So the pattern is really, once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. You go to the top of the M, the peak of the M, and you draw another series of M's, like this, or U's, depending on which way you think of it. And you continue that pattern, and that will give you the sense of the dragon scales. Now we have to remember in drawing the dragon that the dragon is usually portrayed as being curvilinear. So when you draw the dragon scales, you need to conform or manipulate your M's so that they go around the corner. So they're going to be smaller here and bigger over here. So we're going this way. So small here, and then big, 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 big. And that will get you around the corner, the curve of the dragon. And if we took more time and were more precise about this, it would come out, now we can kind of go a little bit straighter because we're sort of on a straightaway with the dragon. Okay, so what's the deal with the zinnia, Beth? Come on, explain it. You're telling us this is a dragon? Yeah, okay, so I can draw my dragon now. But what's the deal with the zinnia? The zinnia is a round, a curving pattern of the dragons, the M's or the U's. So let's look carefully at the zinnia. And Robert, is it in pretty good focus?
Yep.
We can see it. Okay, great. It has a center made up of little florets that would form the pollinating part of the flower, and then around it are smaller petals. And if you look at them carefully, in fact, let me pull one off. No, I'll pull it off. There it is. It's an M or it's a U, depending on what you look at it. So let's just even trace one. Why not? Let's trace it. Which is, you can't really draw anything unless you really understand its structure. I keep emphasizing that. You have to examine it and think about how it's formed, what the pattern is, how large it is, all those factors. So you can see this petal is very similar to the U's or the M's that we have made here for the dragon. So if you think about the zinnia as having a series of petals, red petals, that go in circles, ever increasing circles, larger and larger, you will see that it's similar to this, except that they're going in curves. Now, another fascinating thing about this flower is if I'm looking at the edge of it, which you are not, and I'm going to see a pattern that goes this way. So here, this, and this. Petal, 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 petal. So I'm seeing those petals also kind of curving around in a swirl, and that is characteristic of the inside of a sunflower seed. One of the most difficult things to draw. When sunflowers are out this fall, we'll definitely try to show you how that happens. So let's pretend inside here, in the very center, we see a lot of little sort of fuzzy, you know what, we're going to give ourselves a new sheet of paper here, okay? All right, okay, new sheet. Okay, so this is going to be our zinnia. We're going to be looking right down at it. Okay, so in the center, there is a bunch of little, and they also form a pattern. They're not just random, they form a pattern, but we're not going to worry excessively about that. Then there are a little series of curled leaves, little spirals. So we see a bunch of little spiral leaves in here, petals, actually, not leaves, petals, spirals. And then beyond that, very interesting, we see in yellow, I don't have any yellow handy, too bad. Okay, yellow, there are little parts that have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are yellow, not red, but we'll just pretend they're red. Okay, and then beyond that, we see some petals that have not quite fully developed. These are the very smallest petals, and they also form another layer of complexity. So that is going to represent the center. Now we're into the part that really is the essence of the zinnia. These are the larger petals. So we're going to start out, they're kind of spoon-shaped, and I'm going to go opposite sides All right, I'm going to start out here and here, and then come here and here. And I'm doing this just to be a little bit more careful about the pattern. So there's the basic pattern of the center. Now the next layer comes, now here's where the dragon scale theory comes in handy. From the apex of each petal, we're going to draw the next series of petals. All right, and we're going to give a little variation. Some are going to be larger and some smaller. So there's the next phase. Now you can imagine what's going to happen next. We're going to begin seeing patterns that come in here. You notice that I'm kind of skipping, but I'm being quite regular in the next layer of petals. All right, a few more over here. Okay, there's the next layer. Now the next layer goes beyond that. So now we're seeing less of them, but they're a little bit bigger. And you're going to say, oh, but Beth, that's not quite like the dragon scales. And I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to say, yes, it's not exactly like the dragon scales, but it's close enough. Now our zinnia is becoming a very giant zinnia. Very, very, very large. And pretty soon we're going to say, this zinnia is so big, it could win first prize at the county fair. If only the county fair were going to happen this year. I have a feeling that the beloved Columbia County Agricultural Fair in New York State is going to be canceled this year. And I think that fair, I'll have to check, is something like 120 years old. It's one of the oldest fairs in the United States, and it's gone continuously, but I have a feeling this virus is going to take it out. Or I think we're going to say that's about it for the zinnia. So here's the zinnia. You see I made it much bigger. Now when we're looking straight down at it, we also see leaves. And I think I have a green. Oh, goodness sakes, no, I don't even have a green out here. All right, okay, well, we're gonna say, okay, let's see if this will work. We're going to go for this. This is a narrow, okay, good enough. We're gonna use a narrow one. So again, let's analyze what a zinnia leaf looks like. In order to do that, I'm gonna tear one off. And you know, it's perfectly okay if you're really a beginner to understand something by tracing it. Then you say, okay, you know, once you get into art, you really don't need to trace it once you become more confident. So you can trace it. Now the next thing to analyze are those veins. That's very characteristic of a leaf. And this goes all the way from the stem part to the apex. So this one goes like that, right? Has a kind of a double thickness to it. And then the next two big ones kind of branch out and end up over here, like this and like that. All right, so there we go. Now there's some minor ones, not quite as visible, and they come out like this. It's important to notice it's symmetrical. What happens on this side happens on that side. Most leaves are symmetrical. What happens to the right happens on the left. So once you get the basic feeling about it, you're all right. Now, notice that it's got a wobbly edge. Many leaves have a very sharp edge like that. Zinnia's leaves are kind of floppy or curving, and they come out on thick, they enter directly, they grow directly from the stem that the flower grows from. So there's the flower stem. They have no stems of their own. They burst right out from the flower stem. So when we're looking down at it, like this, now remember I've cut one off, so it's not really fair. Remember, I cut this one off over here. But see how symmetrical they are? One here, one here, one here, one here. So we see 4. The 2 nearest the flower are smaller. The 2 further back are bigger. And you can see the spacing. Flower, leaf, leaf. So if we're drawing it straight on, all we're going to see, peeking over the edge here, is kind of a wobbly leaf going this way and that way. Now I hope that's going to show up. I know it's not a very bright dark green, but hopefully we'll be able to see more or less what's going on. All right, I think we're going to take a quick break and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. What I've done was to locate some additional colors, particularly the greens, so we can get the kind of contrast between the red and the green that would make sense here. So we're getting out the greens. What I'm going to try next is put this one aside. By the way, just for the sake of, here. Yeah. Now, I think you can see this is probably not the most ideal way to draw a zinnia straight down. It makes a very pretty pattern, but it's not the way we think of zinnias. We think of zinnias in a different way. We're more used to seeing, let's take a look at the pot here. We're used to seeing the zinnias kind of from the side. Hardly ever are you looking down at a pot of zinnias. They're on display in your garden or on a pedestal or on your table, and we see them from the side. So that's what we're going to try next. And next week I'll try to show how you would paint, or probably with watercolor, a pot of zinnias, or more than one, how you get sort of like a still life out of it. But for today, let's just look at it sideways. Now, the dragon scale theory is much less evident if you look at it sideways. We don't, it's still there, but it's not the primary thing that we see. What I see first, I'm going to hold this at a slight angle so that I see the yellow part, okay? I'm going to begin inside with that yellow, and I'm going to be pretty sketchy about it. I'm not going to get too, it's an oval. Ovals are very important. If you don't know how to draw an oval, it's time to learn because it crops up again and again in art. Another classic pattern is the oval. So here's this oval around here. Then I see some little red petals here, smaller in back, bigger in front because these are forward and these are behind. And then I begin seeing petals in the back there that sort of have this shape, and I don't see very many of them because they're far away. Another thing to realize here is that I'm also looking at another oval here, which I'm not going to draw. Now, if you're just a beginner, the next part of this lesson is going to be more difficult because you're looking at petals that are foreshortened. And we've talked about foreshortening in other classes. It's when something is going towards you. If my hand is going this way, it's very easy to draw. If my hand is going like this, foreshortened, going forward and shorter, it's extremely difficult to draw. So those little petals, these petals that we analyzed, if you look at them up foreshortened, they often appear like that, just as a little shape. We don't see the whole shape. So that's what I'm looking at here. I'm seeing a couple of them. It's flat, and then it has the curve. It's flat, and then a curve. That's pretty much what I'm seeing at this point. Then when they go to the side, they begin to go out a little bit more. So now let me see, I've got to think a little bit. Yes, here's one here, and then I begin to see more of the cup shape. But they do alternate in a pattern that's somewhat similar to the dragon scale. These in the front are very much foreshortened. Then I see some doing something like this. And then when we go to the side, they become a little bit more like this. And then they begin to get longer, elongated at the side, because now we're looking at them like this. We see them petals this way. So when we get out here, the petals are extending this way, out, right, and left, swinging out, and then some of them begin to tip down. Over here, a little bit down. Okay, that's just pretty much what I'm seeing here. So that's pretty much, if you're looking at it this way, that's more or less what we're seeing. Now, another characteristic here is, and this is why I brought up my markers, when we're looking at it this way, now we see the stem coming down, and now not only we see the stem, but we see one of these floppy leaves. It's got a curve here, and it comes down, and here it dips down. Then I see another floppy leaf doing something very interesting over here. It does something like this, and we see part of the back. That hooks up there. Then this comes down. Then I see a really raucous leaf. Look at this one, this leaf. Oh my goodness. That one goes up this way and across, and then it goes a wavy down like that. And then reemerges down there. Now this particular zinnia, I don't know why, only has 3 leaves, but that would be pretty much how, that's what I'm seeing here. The smaller veins would be coming out here, sort of like that. And on this one, I don't think you see much of the smaller veins of the flower. So I think that's pretty much, I think it's a pretty good place to stop. If you wanted to have fun with your markers, you could begin filling in. You know, markers are a lot of fun, particularly for kids, because they make a good bold pattern. I think for more sophisticated artists, they're a little bit crude. They're great for posters. They have a wonderful role in contemporary life, even if we don't draw with them. Now let me show you one other trick, and then we're going to quit. If I were painting this, I would fill in behind here, behind each petal, with a darker color. All right, so that's how I would handle these spaces. I would get in here and begin to shade the darker spaces, and that will make your forward leaves pop out. So this is just really a rough idea of what's going on here. And also back here, we probably would shade this more. You can see how crude markers are. You know, it's very difficult to be subtle with a marker. In fact, you can't be subtle with a marker. You make a mark and that's it. Okay, I think that's a great place to stop. Watch next week as we take the zinnia into watercolor and do a more refined drawing. We're going to drop the markers and we're going to do I think a bouquet of zinnias. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.